Why did you divorce me? Those 5 words cut through the silence like lightning, tearing apart a tempestuous night. They didn't simply hover in mid-air. They came crashing down, resonating against the chill marble walls of the courthouse. The audience was paralyzed. Cameras snapped wildly, the sound clicking like knives. Journalists leaned so far forward their notebooks almost fell from their laps. The gallery, filled with family members, admirers and curious bystanders, gasped as if the air had been pulled right out of the room. There she was. Meri Brown. She wasn't simply standing at the plaintiff's table, she was emerging from the embers of years of silence. Her skin was ashen, but her eyes blazed with a combination of sadness and determination. Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't soften her. They honed her presence. Before her across the courtroom sat Kody Brown. He slouched in his chair, arms crossed like a man feigning mastery, but his body betrayed him. Sweat trickled slowly down the side of his forehead, and his jaw grew tighter with each passing second. His usual bravado, the arrogance that used to render him invincible in his life of polygamy, was beginning to crack. He wasn't dealing with just a wife today. He was dealing with the wife he abandoned. The crowd shifted uncomfortably in their seats, whispering wildly. Others shook their heads in amazement, and others held their phones aloft, eager to catch every moment of this public breakdown of the Brown family empire. Then came the sound that hushed everything once more. Bang! The judge's gavel crashed down with a stern authority, causing even the most hardened reporters to wince. Judge sternly. Order in the court. This is not a circus. This court is now in session. The murmurs died down instantly. All eyes turned to the bench where the judge sat, his expression firm and unyielding. His gaze shifted to Meri. Judge Mrs. Brown. You've brought this case before us. State your claim. Meri slowly stood from her chair. For an instant her hands shook, but she pinned them between the wooden table and the broad space of her chest, steadying herself. She drew a breath filled with years of betrayal, humiliation and heartbreak. When she spoke at last, her voice was quiet but unyielding, like steel draped in silk. Meri, with quiet strength, I stand here today for the truth. Kody left me. He divorced me, broke me, destroyed the family we created together, and walked away with nothing more than an apparent indifference, as if I was nothing. Today I stand here to ask him, before this court and before the world, why? The words hit like a sledgehammer. The whole courtroom moved. Everyone gasped. Some women in the gallery covered their mouths, tears welling up in their eyes as they felt her anguish. Even the reporters, seasoned by years of reporting scandals and tragedies, stopped their scribbles to absorb the naivety of her appeal. Kody shifted restlessly, clearing his throat, attempting to appear calm, but his gaze swept around the room, to the cameras, to the judge, to Meri, like a man in a cage he could no longer escape. The murmurs increased, a low rumble spreading through the audience. This was not merely a divorce case. This was not merely a battle over dollars and cents. This was more profound, more edgy, more brutal. This was an act of public accountability of love, deceit and broken vows. The judge's gavel came down once more. Judge, silence. This court shall be kept in order. Mrs. Brown, proceed. Meri spun, not towards the judge, but straight towards Kody. Her gaze stayed fixed on him, unwavering. Decades of silence were beginning to shatter, and she wasn't going to let him avert his gaze. Meri, her voice shaking with rage. Kody, I was your wife for years. Your first wife. I gave you every ounce of myself. I stuck with you when we had nothing. I bore the brunt of this family when you were unable to. I believed in us. I believed in you. And then one day, you took everything from me with a stroke of a pen on a sheet of paper. You referred to it as a necessity. You referred to it as duty. But the truth is, I know it. You didn't leave me for the family. You left me for her. Gasps filled the room again. The silent name of Robyn echoed in the air without Meri having to say it out loud. Everyone knew. Everyone always knew. But now it was said out loud. Raw and real. Kody's face turned beet red. He opened his mouth, prepared to interrupt, but the judge raised her hand, stopping him. Judge, You will have your say, Mr. Brown. For now, you will be quiet. Mary's lips trembled, but she persevered. She wasn't here for pity. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for truth. Meri, you said it was for adopting Robyn's kids. You said it was for them, that it was for the family. And because I trusted you, because I wanted to do the right thing, I agreed. I agreed to forsake my rightful position as your wife. I let it go because I believed that you would still love me. I believed that I would still be important. But when the documents were signed, when you already had what you wanted, you no longer looked at me. You no longer fought for me. You abandoned me. Her voice shattered on the final word, and she grabbed the table as if she were holding herself together. Her tears poured down her face, but she did not try to cover them up. She allowed the world to see her brokenness, and her strength in surviving. The room was still, except for the soft sniffles of a woman in the audience. Journalists wrote frantically now, each word a headline waiting to burst across the web. Kody sat back, his jaw clenched, fingers drumming anxiously against the armrest of his chair. For years he had been the leader, the patriarch, the one who controlled things. But here, beneath the glare of truth, he was revealed. Weak, vulnerable, exposed. Meri raised her chin, her voice deepening, growing more defiant. Meri, this isn't just about a divorce. This isn't just about a piece of paper. This is about the betrayal of love. This is on the years I gave, the sacrifices I made, and the manner in which you discarded me like a piece of trash. Today, before this court, before our family, and before the world, I want you to look at me directly and tell me why. Why wasn't I sufficient? Why did you erase me from the life we created? Why, Kody? Her voice echoed through the courtroom, resonating off walls, finding its way into every heart that listened. Judge leaned back, his face serious. The crowd shifted once more, restless and tearful. The tension was agonizing, every breath weighed down with anticipation. The gavel fell for the third time. Judge, this court is aware of the seriousness of these charges. The truth will be revealed here. Mrs. Brown, your complaint has been made. Mr. Brown will have his say in due course. Meanwhile, this court is in order. But it didn't feel like order. Not exactly, because everyone in that room knew. This wasn't a case. It was a reckoning. And it had only just begun. The courtroom was quiet enough that even the distant hum of the overhead lighting sounded thunderous. All eyes were on Meri as she moved slowly toward the witness stand. Each step was like a drumbeat, slow and cumbersome. She wasn't merely approaching the stand. She was walking across the years of suffering, weighed down by decades on her back. The bailiff held up his hand. Bailiff, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Meri's lips quivered, but her voice was firm. Meri, I do. She seated herself, holding the edges of the wooden stand as though the wood itself might hold her fast through the tempest she was about to unleash. The judge nodded. Judge, Mrs. Brown, you may begin. Meri breathed deep. She glanced around the courtroom, the reporters, the public, the stern, unyielding face of Kody, and lastly the cameras aimed at her, sharing her suffering with the world. And then she talked. Meri softly, with emotion. When I got married to Kody, I believed it was forever. I believed we were creating something holy, something solid. I believed we were a team. I believed in our love. I believed in him. I stood by him, when no one else would, when people mocked us, when we had nothing but hopes. I was there at the start. I was the one who held his hand, when we didn't know how to pay the bills. I was the one who believed in his dreams for our family. I carried loads. I kept secrets. I made sacrifices. All for him, for us. And I thought, in return he would stand by me. I thought, I mattered. A hush fell over the crowd. Even those who had come expecting drama now sat motionless, their hearts tied to every word spilling from her mouth. Meri's hands shook as she reached for a glass of water. She sipped, steadied herself, then turned her gaze directly on Kody. Meri firmly, but along the way somehow I became invisible to you. Kody, I wasn't your wife anymore. I wasn't your partner in your eyes. I was just a shadow. And then there was the day that shattered me. The day you asked me to divorce you. Gasps filtered through the gallery. While everyone had known the story, To hear it for themselves, in this environment, made it cut more acutely. Meri, voice rising in anger. You said it was for the sake of the family. You said it was for Robyn's children. You said it was about love, creating something greater. You asked me to trust you. And I did. Because that was me. I was the wife who believed her husband. I signed those documents thinking our love was strong enough to weather a legal adjustment. But the moment you had what you wanted, the moment Robyn became your legal wife, you stopped looking at me like I was your wife at all. Her eyes brimmed with tears. And she gripped the stand tighter. Meri? I don't know how many nights I cried myself to sleep, asking myself why I wasn't good enough. I wondered what I did wrong, what I was missing, why you couldn't love me like you loved her. And I woke up every morning, put on a smile, and tried to make the world believe that I was fine. But I wasn't fine, Kody. I was dying. The gallery murmured again, whispers drifting like smoke through the room. Some removed tears. Others shook their heads in horror at the ugliness revealed. Meri stopped, her chest heaving and falling. The silence was agonizing, but she wasn't done. Meri? Lower, shaking. You didn't divorce me on paper. You divorced me in your heart. You divorced me in your words. You divorced me in the way you ignored me. In the way you shut me out. In the way you gave everything to her. And left me with nothing. She shook her finger right at Kody, crying openly now. Meri? With anger. You betrayed me. You betrayed the promises we made. You betrayed the life we constructed. And the worst thing, you never even fought on my behalf. Not once. You simply let me go. The courtroom dissolved into gasps. Once again, the judge banged the gavel. Judge, order. Order in the court. But the energy could not be kept in. This was not just testimony. It was a woman's soul exposed to the world. Meri leaned forward, her voice increasing in strength, steadiness, sharpness. Meri? Kody, do you have any idea what it's like to be erased? To be sitting at a family table and know you are no longer a member of the family. To see the man you loved walk by you like you don't exist. To hear him laugh in another woman's arms, while you're sitting all alone. That is what you did to me. That is what you left me with. Her words stabbed through the silence, each one heavier than the last. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his face tight, his eyes refusing to meet hers. Meri's lawyer placed a hand on her shoulder, but she shook it off gently. She wasn't done. Meri, tearful but fierce. I am not here for sympathy. I am not here for revenge. I am here for the truth. I want you to look at me, in the eye, in the presence of this court, in the presence of our children, in the presence of the world, and explain to me why. Why wasn't I worth fighting for? Why wasn't I enough? Why did you leave me, Kody? The words rang out in the room, like a midnight church bell, slow and mournful. The reporters scribbled away frantically. The crowd shifted, others covering their faces, others openly crying. The judge leaned back in his chair, his face grim. The courtroom was thick with the pain of decades distilled into one testimony. Meri brushed her tears away, raised her chin, and uttered the words that left the entire courtroom shaking. Meri, I gave you my life, Kody Brown, and you gave me an ending I never deserved. Silence. The kind of silence that only occurs when every heart in the room has been broken. The courtroom was heavy with Meri's words, the raw pain still hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. The silence pressed on everyone's chest. Reporters, spectators, even the judge. All eyes turned toward Kody Brown, the man who sat stiffly at the defendant's table. For years Kody had been the center of control, the patriarch who never questioned himself. But now, under the harsh glow of courtroom lights, he looked smaller. His jaw tightened, his fingers drummed nervously against the table, and his golden curls no longer gave him the charm he once wielded over cameras. Finally the judge leaned forward. Judge, Mr. Brown, you've heard Mrs. Brown's testimony. This is your opportunity to respond. The room shifted as all of their heads turned to Kody. He cleared his throat, stood, and smoothed his suit jacket. His typical confidence attempted to seep into his voice, but the cracks were there. Kody, firm but defensive. This was never about leaving Meri behind. This was not about betrayal. This was about family. This was about what needed to happen. The divorce? It was a matter of law. I had to marry Robyn so that I might adopt her kids and provide for them safety. That was the only motive. Meri understood this. She consented to it. Whispers flared at once. A couple of the people in the gallery shook their heads. Reporters raised an eyebrow, writing furiously. The words were hollow, rehearsed, sounding like excuses honed for years, but never tried out under fire. Meri leaned forward, staring at him, her face a storm. Meri interrupting, angry. Don't spin this, Kody. Don't you touch it. I agreed because you pressured me. Because you convinced me that this was the only way to salvage the family. You guaranteed me that nothing would ever be different. But it all changed. The second she became your lawful wife, I was no longer part of your world. The judge held up a hand. Judge, Mrs. Brown, you'll have your rebuttal. Just let Mr. Brown continue. Meri slumped back, but never took her eyes off Kody. Kody stood up straight, puffing out his chest, as if attempting to regain lost ground. Kody louder, defensive. I did the best for everyone. I had the burden of a huge family. I had to make difficult choices. Perhaps Meri feels hurt, but she was not abandoned. She voluntarily stepped away. She isolated herself. She wasn't a partner long before the divorce proceedings. The gallery gasped, the air sharp with disbelief. Someone muttered, "That's a lie," before quickly being silenced by the bailiff. Meri's lawyer rose. Lawyer, objection. Your Honor. That is character assassination without evidence. Judge. Overruled. Mr. Brown may continue. But he will keep his statements to facts. Kody's face flushed red, but he pressed on. Kody, Meri's painting herself as the victim. But the truth is, she checked out of the marriage. She chose distance. She was the one who sought companionship elsewhere. She created the wedge between us. Gasps rippled again. A clear reference to Meri's past catfishing scandal. The wound that tabloids had feasted on for years. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Meri's hands clutched the stand tighter, her knuckles white. Tears glistened in her eyes. But this time not from sorrow. Anger. Meri yelling, "You pushed me there. You made me feel unloved, unwanted, invisible. I was drowning, Kody, and you threw me deeper underwater instead of rescuing me." The judge slammed the gavel. Judge. Order. Both parties are going to be respectful in this courtroom. The whispers subsided, but the air thickened with tension. Kody huffed, then addressed the judge, his tone softer as if in an effort to round off his sharp angles. Kody pleading, "I adored Meri. I did try. But marriage is a two-way street." She withdrew. She put distance between us. And I had no alternative but to get on with someone who did want to build an actual partnership. Robyn provided that. Robyn stood by me. Robyn believed in me when Meri didn't. The crowd buzzed again, but this time more loudly. The favoritism, the blatant admission of his love for Robyn over Meri, burned the air like salt in a fresh wound. Meri's attorney rose, his voice biting. Lawyer Mr. Brown, are you admitting here, under oath, that your emotional attachment changed wholly to Robyn after your divorce from Meri? Kody's face went white. He stalled, then mumbled, "Kody, my priorities. Yes, they changed. But for the children. Always for the children." The lawyer prodded. Lawyer, so the children of one wife were more important than the dignity of another. Gasps erupted. Cameras clicked with a staccato beat. Kody stuttered, words escaping his grasp. Kody snapping, "Don't take my words out of context. I did what I needed to do to defend them. Meri didn't need defending. She's strong. She could have managed." The courtroom went quiet at his tone. His rage wasn't strength. It was desperation. It made him sound cornered, naked, unhinged. Meri stood up from her chair, shaking but defiant. Meri between tears. "You didn't keep me safe, Kody. You dumped me. You used me as long as I was handy. Then you discarded me. Don't you dare stand there and refer to that as love. Don't you dare." Her voice rocked the room like thunder. The gavel came down again, but even the judge appeared exhausted from the tempest before him. Kody sat back down, his chest rising and falling, sweat glistening on his forehead. For the first time, the man who had always dictated the terms, who always got to have the final word in his family's tale, had no solid ground to stand. The cameras zoomed in. Reporters scrawled furiously. The gallery hung forward, entranced. And in that instant, everybody in the courtroom could see it. Kody Brown wasn't arguing for his decisions anymore. He was standing up for the remains of his pride. The courtroom hummed after Kody's impassioned defense. His words still rang, biting, protective, stung with pride. but his flaws were now gaping holes. Everyone could sense it. Kody wasn't standing tall anymore. He was backed into a corner, flailing. The judge cleared his throat and pushed his glasses up his nose. Judge, Mr. Brown's evidence will be remembered. Counsel for Mrs. Brown, you can now present your evidence. Mary's attorney, a steely-eyed woman in a navy blue suit, stood up confidently. In her hands, she held a thick folder, the sort of folder that held secrets. The gallery leaned forward, tension almost at breaking point. Lawyer firm but calm. Your Honor, today isn't about feeling or about memories. It's about truth. And the truth is on record. What we will show will reveal a history of betrayal, abandonment, and deliberate emotional abuse perpetrated against my client, Mrs. Meri Brown, by Mr. Kody Brown. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his expression constricting. The attorney approached the evidence table and drew out the first exhibit, a pile of printed text messages, displayed on a big screen for the court. Lawyer, here are the messages that Mr. Brown has sent to members of the family, exchanges that illustrate the changing dynamic. In these, Mr. Brown refers to Meri as, and I quote, a burden, a mistake, and most withering, someone I no longer think of as a wife. The words flashed on the courtroom screen. Gasps hung in the air. Some in the gallery covered their mouths, reporters' pens fluttering. Meri sat frozen, but tears sparkled in her eyes as the words cut across her heart yet again. Kody's attorney stood up promptly. Kody's lawyer. Objection. Out of context. Selective evidence. Judge overruled. Proceed. Kody leaned into his attorney, whispering angrily, but the harm had already been done. The attorney continued, producing another paper. Lawyer, next. Your Honor. Financial statements. These records show that in the year following the divorce, Mr. Brown redirected a significant portion of family funds, money meant to be shared equally, to support the household of Robyn Brown exclusively. Meri, meanwhile, received nearly nothing. These were not family decisions. These were unilateral choices. The figures appeared on the screen. Thousands funneled into one household, while Mary's financial line showed only scraps. Meri bowed her head. It wasn't about money. It was about proof. Proof that she had been cast aside in every way that mattered. The gallery buzzed again. This wasn't just gossip anymore. It was betrayal in black and white. Kody's lawyer leapt up once more. Kody's lawyer, objection. Mr. Brown had a right to use funds to guard the children in his charge. Lawyer interrupting, sternly, to guard children, or to guard a new marriage. Your Honor, these were not documents about children. They were documents about favoritism, about leaving one wife behind to construct a kingdom with another. My client was left on the curb, like last week's trash. The judge held up his hand. Judge, order. The objection is noted and overruled. Please proceed. Kody's jaw was clamped so tight the vein on his temple throbbed. The lawyer produced her last piece of evidence, her voice calm, knowing this would leave the courtroom breathless. Lawyer, and finally, Your Honor. Witness testimony from family members themselves. It was silent. Whispers flew through the gallery like sparks. Everyone recognized that this was the moment. The bailiff opened the side door, and into the courtroom walked Christine Brown and Janelle Brown, both holding folders, both looking solemn. Kody's head snapped toward them, his eyes wide in disbelief. Kody hissing under his breath. You're not seriously doing this. But they were. Christine took the stand first. Her voice trembled, but her conviction grew stronger with each word. Christine, I saw it happen. I saw Kody leave Meri. He said to me, more than once, that he no longer counted her as a wife. He belittled her suffering. He ignored her existence. He was heartless. Not aloof, heartless. I remained silent because I felt it wasn't mine to speak. But silence is what broke this family apart. I won't remain silent anymore. Gasps arose throughout the room. Kody's face turned red with anger, his fists tight, but Christine's statement rung like the bells of truth. Janelle continued, her voice steady but insistent, her eyes fixed on Kody with quiet rage. Janelle, I witnessed the favoritism. I witnessed how Meri was ousted. He informed us all that divorcing her was just paperwork. But it wasn't just paperwork. It was a message. It informed all of us that some wives were disposable, that some of us were less important. Meri surrendered decades of her life to him, and he dumped her like trash. I cannot, in good conscience, remain silent about that. The courtroom was thunderstruck. Two wives standing united against the man who had once ruled them all. Kody shot up from his seat, slamming his hands on the table. Kody yelling, "Lies. All of it, you're twisting my words. You're trying to destroy me because you're bitter and jealous. None of this is true." The judge's gavel cracked against the wood. Judge Stern, sit down right now, Mr. Brown, or I will hold you in contempt of court. The courtroom was silent. Cameras panned in on Kody's red face, sweat dripping off his temples. He was no longer a leader, but a man who was coming apart at the seams. Christine and Janelle walked away, their heads held high, their dignity unblemished. They had testified truthfully. Meri's attorney turned to the judge. "Lawyer, Your Honor, the divorce is not about this case. It is about betrayal. A betrayal so deep it broke not only my client's heart, but the foundation of a whole family. The evidence establishes a man who opted to keep one wife and discarded the other like a piece of used paper. That is not partnership. That is not love. That is abandonment." The gallery burst into murmurs once more, some even applauding before being quashed by the bailiff. The air was charged, raw, and heartbreaking. Meri sat still, tears streaming down her face. But these tears were not those of hopelessness this time. They were those of vindication. For once the truth was not hidden in whispers or reality TV clips. It was here bare and bare-faced, before a judge, before the world. Kody returned to his seat, white and speechless, his lawyer shouting angrily into his ear. But no words could take back what had just been set loose. The evidence wasn't only against him. It had revealed him. And every person in the courtroom knew it. The courtroom was quiet now. The sort of quiet that was heavy, as if each breath was being weighed. The gallery had ceased to whisper, the reporters to scribble. Even the cameras hung suspended, waiting. Kody sat hunched over in his chair, his booming confidence gone, replaced by a nervous quiver. He licked sweat from his forehead with a trembling hand, his eyes moving from the judge to the jury to Meri. For the first time he seemed small. Meri, on the other hand, sat with her tightly clenched hands in her lap. Her tears had long since dried up, but her eyes held a steadfast blaze. She was not the woman who entered that courtroom shattered. She was a different person now, reborn in the truth. The judge rustled his papers, refitted his glasses, and finally met her gaze. "Judge, calm but firm. This court has heard the arguments, examined the evidence, and listened to the testimonies. What we've seen is not simply the end of a marriage, but the unraveling of a family. Mr. Brown, your actions, the favoritism, the neglect, and the cruel words toward Mrs. Brown, paint a clear picture of emotional abandonment." The gallery buzzed softly. Kody shifted uncomfortably, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Judge, going on. Mrs. Brown, you spent decades of your life on this marriage. You stood by your vows, even when you were discarded. This court acknowledges that commitment, and takes note of the hurt you suffered. In a legal sense, this court rules in your favor." Meri gasped hard. Her heart pounded. "Judge, thus, the divorce is effective upon signature. Complete monetary restitution for assets inappropriately diverted will be awarded to Mrs. Brown. In addition, with the history of emotional neglect, Mr. Brown's credibility as a head of family is thoroughly eroded. In my opinion, you defaulted on your obligation as a husband." Gasps filled the courtroom. Some in the audience applauded before being hushed by the bailiff's piercing stare. Meri covered her eyes as tears streamed down her face. But they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief. Years of pain, silenced in whispers and disregarded by the people she trusted most, had at last been recognized in the most direct manner conceivable. Words of fact sworn before God and men. Kody leaped out of his seat, his voice breaking as he accused Meri with a shaking finger. Kody shouting, "This is a setup. You're all against me. You think you've won, Meri? You think the world is on your side? You're nothing without me. Nothing." The judge's gavel came down. "Judge firmly. Mr. Brown, one more outburst and you will be taken from this courtroom in contempt." The threat silenced him at once. His face was flushed, his breathing harsh, but the power in the judge's voice gave him no space to struggle. Mary's attorney leaned over and spoke quietly in her ear. Lawyer whispering, "You did it. You finally did it." Meri nodded, unable to speak. She just pressed her hand over her chest, feeling her heart thumping with freedom she hadn't known in years.